Hi, I'm Jonathan from Wiregrass Made. We sell parts to fix and keep your Glowforges going. And today what we're going to be looking at is something we have discovered. The power supplies on these Glowforges have had an issue with the high voltage wire, where it actually runs under the laser tube in the metal gantry. Over time, they've been weakening and shorting, and it's actually been blowing holes in the actual wire, as you can see right there. So when that happens, the symptom you get is the laser moves like it should, but it does not engrave anymore. Nothing happens, and the laser tube does not light up, but the machine doesn't see any errors. So that is an issue with the power supply itself. The wire is not replaceable. It's actually built onto the power supply and epoxied in, so it's not something you can replace. So we brought this to Glowforge's attention, and basically if you have a refurbished unit or if you have a older Glowforge, this isn't being taken care of. So the new units that they're selling actually come with what we suggested, which is a fiberglass sheath or shield, this right here, that's going to go on the power wire itself. So this is actually a safe, non-flammable fiberglass sheathing that's going to go over the wire to prevent it from arcing out and grounding to the gantry and causing the problem that we found. So it's a little bit of a job, and in this video I'm going to go over how to replace it and how to do it. One thing in the video I kind of skipped over was when you put it together, you're going to want to have two pieces of heat shrink, one at the top, one at the bottom, and that's to keep it from slipping, keep the fiberglass sheathing from actually splitting over time and over use. And that's something you'll want to put, and I do show me putting one on before, but you're going to want to do that and heat it to shrink it. So in this video, this is what we're going to do. Now, if your machine is already acting up, it doesn't engrave and it moves, this will not repair the problem. This is something that should give you a couple more years on your Glowforge, which is great, seeing as how a refurbished unit is $1,500 currently, and it's been going up steadily over the years. So this, if it gets you 2 more years, is well worth the investment and the time, but it is a little bit of work. So in this video, we're going to show you how to do it, and if you have any questions, or if yours is not working currently, you can go to the Friendliest Facebook page and message us through there, and we'll be happy to help you out. To start out with, you're going to remove the 3 T10 screws, and if you get the kit from us at the store, it'll come with that T10 screwdriver. Just get those 3 out of the way. When they're out of the way, the way to get this lid off, I used to use a pry tool, but I've discovered it's easier to actually use your thumb and press on the plastic housing. So you just put your thumb through the hole and don't push on the clip, but you actually push on the plastic housing of the Glowforge while pulling up. The newer models have a different clip style and come up way easier. The old ones, you still have to do it a clip at a time. On the back, sometimes there's adhesive, so you just have to bump it and get it free. And then once that's off, I've been using a paintbrush to knock all the debris out of the way. It does help to clean it before you do this. It's just less for the cable to bind on or snag pulling it through. So I just hit it with a brush and use a vacuum to vacuum it all out. So it just helps out. You can see I got this one fairly clean while doing it. So this is ours. I took some time to scrub it quite well before the video. Just figured it was a good opportunity to, since I had both covers off, just clean everything, and clean workspace is better. So on the end of the laser tube, there's a red plug, and you just pull backwards on it, move the tube in the middle and pull back till it pops off, and you can see there's a screw holding on the cable. So you just go ahead and remove that. It's a T10 as well. So just get that out of the way. Then you'll see the cable actually loops through the coolant line right there. So you just kind of pull it straight back under. You want it to move straight back. So come with some string. You just tie the string to the eyelet of the cable. And you'll want to do this because trying to feed it back through without a cable or some sort of feed string is not an easy endeavor. I've had to actually use a wire to put a string back through there where I messed something up learning. So one thing you want to do, you don't want to pull it from the base. You want to reach under the laser tube and find it. And you want to pull it straight back. You don't want to pull it at an angle if you can help it, because the aluminum gantry does have some sharp corners. You don't want to nick the cable or cause any other potential damage. So you just pull straight backwards. Sometimes it's a little snug in there. You can spray some glass cleaner or something to loosen it up. That just all the smoke and debris and the Glowforge can kind of glue it in there. But once it comes loose, it pulls straight out. So there's your string. You want to go ahead and clean it, wipe a lot of that debris off. Now you're going to pull it out of the chain guide. So it's kind of a two-step. Just do it one at a time. So now you're going to pull it all the way out of the chain guide. You do want to make sure you don't pull the wire tight. You want to leave a loop right there for access to the wire or the string. So something I learned on the other side, tie a loose loop and put it on the end of the laser tube. That'll keep you from accidentally pulling the string backwards. And this is the sheath. It's going to have a cable inside of it to help you pull the red cable through it. And this can be a little tricky. This sheathing is kind of like a Chinese finger trap, and it tends to bind. Before you put it on though, put the heat shrink over the cable. It makes life a lot easier. Trying to slide it over that sheathing is not as easy. You just have to kind of work it, feeding it over the cable. Once you get all the way over the cable, you want to go ahead and put the heat shrink on the bottom of it. What you'll notice now I'm doing is kind of, you have to stretch that stuff tight like a finger trap. So when you put the heat shrink on the bottom, you'll actually hold it at the bottom and start tugging on it and pulling it tight. You can actually pinch it and feel it when it gets there. It's real tight around the cable. It's not any looseness to the sheathing. You're going to want that, because trying to feeding it back through that galley can be difficult. The bottom of it's not as important. You just want to make sure that you have about 3 inches from the eyelet. There's no metal in the gantry, so it doesn't have anything to actually short to, or I'm sorry, in the chain guide. So there's nothing for it to really short there. The main spot it's been shorting is in the gantry itself, because it's surrounded by a conductive metal. So what you're going to do now is get some electrical tape, and you've got to put it on snugly. You don't want to put it on too thick, but you're going to put just basically one wrap around the sheathing, and then work your way forward with it just enough to cover the wire a little bit where it doesn't come loose. But you want to stretch it on tightly so it doesn't have anything to bind on pulling it through that gantry, because that cable, I believe, is a 6mm, 5mm, something like that, but the hole that it slides into is not much larger, so you don't have a lot of extra space. So that's also the reason we work the sheathing the way I did, to pull it tight. So you're going to do this in 2 steps. The first thing you're going to do is grab your loop you left and pull it through the chain gantry. When you're pulling it through there, sometimes it likes to bind a little bit. What you can do is you can actually move the laser tube gantry assembly forward and back, and it just allows you to kind of free it up anywhere it might be snagging in that chain guide, because it does move and you'll have curves and straightness. So once you get it out, just go ahead and pull all the slack through the chain guide. Leave a little at the bottom. It's never super snug. You just got a little bit of freedom down there, a little looseness. So this picture is kind of hard to capture because it's underneath, but it actually goes through a slot inside of the gantry, and you need to make sure you feed it back into the same slot. Was not easy to get a picture of. It's not really a great picture, but you can feel, if you pull the wire through, you can feel where it's at, and kind of feel when you go to pull it out where it's at, a couple of notches. It's the very forward notch that it uses as a guide for that high voltage cable. And if you look, here's the other side of it coming out of the laser tube itself. So can be a little tricky because if you go through the wrong one, it hits a rubber stopper. So you have to go through. So when you go to pulling it through the gantry as well, it's kind of a give and take. You want to make sure you're pulling straight through on the right side, but you also have to reach around the left and feed it straight into that guide. You can't let it kind of pull at an angle. Like I said, there's some sharp corners on there and you don't want it scratching or damaging anything. Plus it causes resistance and makes it more difficult. So you have to kind of look, make sure you're lining it up and pull. If it snags at all or you feel like it's not wanting to move, you can pull backwards on the cable and then back forward on the string to try to free it up. If there's still some problems, if your sheathing is not tight, it will not want to go. You'll have to pull it back out of at least the laser tube and stretch the sheathing back out the way I did it before. You can't use heat shrink on it. It's too big around and it will cause it to snag. I tried. So you have to start off doing it this way and just pull it real firmly and just kind of go slow with it. Like I said, if it snags, pull backward on the high voltage cable and then pull forward on your string again. But it does come through relatively easily so long as you have everything prepped right. Now the heat shrink, I don't know if anybody's used it before, but you just use a flame on it and it's a plastic tubing that actually shrinks tight over the cable and over the sheathing, and that'll keep the end of that sheathing from fraying up. It also keeps it sealed a little bit and looks better, and it also insulates that area where it comes out. So you'll get that, and you'll just use a little bit of flame. You want to do like 50% coverage on the sheathing and 50% coverage on the wire. And I'm using just a regular lighter. I'm not close to the tube. It's pulled far enough away so it's not going to bother anything. And the same thing on the bottom. You don't want to get close to any of the electronics with the heat. So you just, main thing is as long as you're 3 to 4 inches from the eyelet. With the sheathing, the bottom's not as big of a deal. But you'll do this before you pull it through. And there you go. It's back together. It's clean. High voltage sheathing is on there. Hopefully it'll extend the life for a couple of years. Like I said though in the video, if yours is already malfunctioning, this will not fix it. This is a preventative measure, not a repair measure. So you've got it all cleaned, going back together with it at this point. You just put the red cap back on and you just bend the siding out to do that. You put your covers on and pop them down and put your screws back. Make sure it's dry from being clean and you're good to get back to lasering.